Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Hi. And it's Friday. So it's the Quantum Alignment Show. And we are going to continue today our last conversation on power and the types. I want to have this conversation with you because I have seen in the comments that I find personally very disparaging. And I find them disparaging because I think that sometimes in the rhetoric of human design, we don't adequately address the power of each and every one of you. There is no one who is not designed to be powerful. We are all innately powerful. And as I've said before a couple of times in the past couple of weeks, we're so powerful, and it's such an element of who we are that we have two distinctly very important developmental phases that we go through as part of our growth process as children that train us to become powerful. In particular, we learn to be powerful when we are between the ages of 2 and 5. And if you have a toddler at home or as a young child, you know that one of their favorite words is the word no, right? Which is part of one of the words we use when we are discovering and learning about our power. We learn to say no. And the truth is, if you are not allowed to find appropriate ways to cultivate and learn to be powerful as a small child, you might carry that woundedness with you, and that may impact your own sense of empowerment and how powerful you feel in your life as an adult. It may not have anything to do with what's going on in your life right now. You still may be carrying a core wound there that is all about maybe you never learning how to appropriately say no, or when it's okay to say no, or being allowed to say no. I think it's ironic. This will probably date me age-wise a lot, but in the 80s we talked a lot about the Just Say No campaign. I think it was Nancy Reagan's campaign against drugs in schools, right? And it's like, if you've never been allowed to say no in your life as a child, how are you going to say no as a young adult or an adolescent? The second developmental phase that we go through is between the ages of 12 to 16. And that is this time when you literally learn to step into your power as part of the differentiation process in your development, meaning you need to learn how to say no as a young adult or an adolescent, because that's part of the separation process that begins you on the journey of discovering for yourself who you are and who you are separate from your family. So you literally need to go through these developmental cycles so that you can discover your own power and the nature of your power. And honestly, when we think about the models that we have around how we raise children, in traditional models, I would say it's evolving and changing, which is exciting, but certainly in traditional models of parenting and even traditional models of education, we don't allow children to discover their own innate sense of power and their empowerment. We don't teach children how to drop into those spaces of awareness of who they are and how they make good and right decisions for themselves. And we oftentimes really discourage children from being powerful because we have belief systems about children, like children should be seen and not heard, or children should respect and obey adults. And while I'm not saying there aren't elements of truth in those, especially, I'm a parent of 8 children. I get it. I want my children to treat me respectfully. And truth is, there will be times when it's developmentally normal for them to at least push those boundaries when they're in their adolescence ages. But we don't train people how to be powerful very well in our culture. And it was certainly in the Western culture. And I would certainly say that many of us who feel disempowered or powerless don't really feel powerless because of your design, but you feel powerless because of some of the other elements that maybe have led you up to this point in your life and your own sense of self-awareness and your conditioning. And that conditioning isn't always just about energy. I think sometimes when we look at human design, one of the pitfalls of looking at human design as a pedagogy is that human design is mechanical. It explains some of the mechanics of how people interact together, how they connect, what kinds of issues and challenges might come up in certain relationships, how they go out in the world and experience the world, but it's not everything. And we have to also roll into our conversations about human design, I believe, other aspects of what it means to be human as well. Certainly, what we see in human design is that we are on the cusp of a powerful creative revolution that is going to push all of us into a place where we're going to have to dig deeper into our own personal power, our own personal truth, and discover for ourselves what we need to do to create what we need to create in the world, and what we can do to contribute to the creation of a world of equitable, sustainable peace. And if you are not tapped into your power and the nature of your power, and not only that, but the unique gifts that each and every one of you have, and that each and every one of you are here to ultimately share with the world, because your piece in the cosmic plan, you all, this is so important. Each and every one of you plays a very unique role in the unfolding of the cosmic plan. And there's no one on this planet that can replace your role. You have an irreplaceable spot in this cosmic revolution. And as such, you are a cosmic revolutionary. And it is time now for all of us to step into our place, to begin the process, or to continue the process, not a beginning, but to continue this process of deepening our own sense of awareness, our own ability to influence the outcome of what we create in our reality, and most importantly, to find the truth of who we are and bring it out in its most juicy, richest fulfillment, because it makes you have a better life, a more meaningful life, a more joyful life, a more sufficient life, and it gives you more to give to the world. So that's my mini lecture for today. So don't tell me you're not powerful. It's not about that. You are designed to be powerful. Maybe what we need to do, and we'll do this a little bit today, is redefine instead, what does it mean to be powerful? Because I would certainly say even the paradigms of power are changing, and the nature of how we describe power and how we live into our power are changing. And the old way of force and control as a way of being powerful don't work. And those are very finite energies to draw on when you are cultivating your personal and even our collective power. So let's talk first today about power and the types. And I know that for some of you, this may seem like a review. There's power in hearing it again, because sometimes when you hear it again, you hear it the way you need to hear it in this expression, in this moment of your life, because maybe there's a facet or an asset that you are going to tap into in a new and expanded way. Let's start first with this comment, because I think this is a very important understanding. If you are not living true to not just the spiritual purpose, but to the purpose of your human design type, you will feel the emotional theme of your human design type. That being said, let me just say that you're always, no matter how high of a frequency you're vibing with, you will always experience the emotional theme of your type, because that emotional theme of that type is part of how you work with energy. And I really think the problem isn't so much the emotional theme as it's the way in which we interpret the emotional theme. So the manifester tends to feel anger. And when we talk about the anger of the manifester, we're often talking about it as a manifester that is not tapping into their power correctly. I believe that sometimes the manifester feels angry, and we call it anger, and it's not really anger, when their creative flow gets interrupted. There's a buildup or backup of sudden energy that doesn't get to move freely. And so it explodes sometimes out into the world, or it creates explosions in the world. And those explosions of anger are not really anger per se, as it is the creative flow of the manifester gets interrupted. For the generators, the frustration, the emotional theme of frustration, is oftentimes an indication that you are living on a plateau. So the generators feel frustration as part of their natural expansive cycles. Frustration is really the symptom that energy momentum is building for the next opportunity or the next surge in mastery. So when you are a generator and you are frustrated and you come and you get a reader, one of my human design specialists, what a lot of times I'll say, and I know my specialists say this too, is you're feeling frustrated and you're a generator, that's awesome, because what that means is you're about to have a breakthrough. You're on that cusp of energy buildup and momentum, and it's pushing you, it will push you ultimately to the next opportunity. When the projectors are feeling bitterness, I think sometimes we we mistake that bitterness for exhaustion. And that the bitterness oftentimes is a symptom that you haven't been using your energy correctly, that you haven't remembered when enough is enough. Maybe you've been pushing yourself too far out there, or that maybe it's just time to take a pause, take a break. And that taking pauses and breaks, even pauses and breaks during the day for like a little snack or a meal or a respite or a short 15-minute nap, are imperative for the projectors. Some projectors really need that. And if you don't take that, if you're not consistent in your sense of self-worth and self-value, and you're not valuing yourself as a projector enough to take those breaks, then you really need to cultivate the sense of value necessary for you to sense that the bitterness is really the exhaustion, and to give yourself the permission, sometimes it has to come from you sometimes, to take a break, and that there's no shame in resting. And of course, for the reflector, the theme of disappointment often comes from not being in the right place with the right people, and trying to push that infinite wisdom of yours, that reflective awareness of yours, out into the world and make change. And when you're disappointed, sometimes it really isn't just that you're not living true to your theme. It might be that you're not in the right place, or it's time to make a change, or it's time to be different, to be in a different place with a different group of people in a different community, because you are oftentimes better served when you yourself are in the community who you are designed to serve. The other thing that happens is, if you're not living true to your purpose, and your mundane purpose as well as your spiritual purpose in your human design, you're also going to feel really disconnected from source, which means you start to feel really unsupported in every aspect of your life, and it becomes difficult to tap into powerful creative energies such as faith. And faith oftentimes is a source of tremendous power, because when we have faith, meaning that when we understand that sometimes we want to create something that we don't know how to create, or we need something that we don't know how to create. When you have faith, you know that it's okay to trust in the timing to allow it to unfold correctly for you according to your human design type. And when you feel disconnected from source, or you don't trust source, or you don't trust in the goodness of the infinite supply of the universe, when you're out of sync with that, because you're not living true to who you are, and consequently you're not really tapping into your resources and your support, you start to increase that sense of disconnect and operate in a very limited way, and you don't tap into the true power of who you are. In the next couple of slides, I'm going to go through the spiritual and the mundane purposes of the types, mostly because I want you to rethink perhaps some of the vocabulary that we use in human design around the types, and to give you perhaps a different perspective on how to understand the true nature of your type and the purpose of your type. Manifestors, first of all, have a spiritual purpose that is about translating divine inspiration into action. When you are a manifestor, there is an internal, nonverbal, divine creative flow that is coursing through your essence. And as a manifestor, because that alignment, when you're living true to who you are, is so intimate and so intertwined literally into the physicality of your beingness, your role in life is to translate that inspiration into action, to get the inspiration, feel it, sense it, talk to it, play with it, dance with it, and then put it into action as an initiating force in the world. You are here to ultimately, through your actions, initiate others into possibility. And when you are serving that divine flow and recognizing that your power is not about, I'm so powerful from an ego place, but understanding that the nature of your power as a manifestor is to be a sacred steward to that divine creative flow. That when you serve the world from that place, it makes it a lot less scary for you to step into your power, because you start to realize that your power isn't about you necessarily. It's about you serving the power that courses through you. The themes that often come up for the manifestor, and these are with every one of these types that we go through, I'm going to give you exploratory questions that I want you to play with, because we're not going to find the answer probably in this call, because these are all personal questions and personal explorations. But I really do want to invite you, all of you, to really explore these questions that I'm going to give you today, and take them home with you, and take them into your dream time. Take them into your contemplative practice. Take them into your meditation. For my manifestors, maybe take them in your walk, right? Go on your meditative walk and really explore these questions, because the aspects that keep us stuck from living our type are really also the aspects that oftentimes keep us from tapping into our full power. The power of the manifestor is the power to translate inspiration into action. And when the manifestor gets confused about their identity, mostly because people don't get the manifestor and they have experienced over the course of their lifetimes people judging them because of the anger, which was the interruption of the creative flow, or judging them because as children they exerted their power and it was not okay, perhaps in the family that you grew in, to express your power, so you learned to shut it down. Or maybe particularly for manifestor women, particularly for my older manifestor women who are like in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. Yes, that's me too, older, yes. When we talk about the cultural norms that we have for women and power, and for many manifesting women especially, it's not okay, or it's never been okay or safe to really step into that power because it's an initiating energy. And the traditional archetype of the woman in Western culture is not initiating, it's responsive, right? You think about going to a middle school dance or a high school dance, right? It's the boy who asks the girl, right? Or even when you think about getting married, it's the man who asks the woman. And for the manifestor woman, that's not correct. That's abdicating or pushing down your natural power. You're not here to wait for somebody else to tap you into action. You are the source of action by virtue of your connection to that inner creative flow. And when you are not aligned with that place of action, or it has never been sanctioned or safe for you to express that power, then what happens is you learn to hide it and you don't fulfill that full expression of your power. So the question for my manifestors I really invite you to explore is, do you express your full power or are you hiding it? And in your imagination, when you really think of yourself as being, a powerful person, are you really tapping into the quality of power that you feel inside of yourself, or are you downplaying it? Are you watering it down? Are you modulating it so it's not too much for other people because you don't want to be impacted by other people's perspectives on who you are? The second question that I really want to invite you to explore as a manifestor is your anger keeping you from fulfilling your power? And again, I'm not saying this isn't true for men too, because I'm sure it is. And frankly, it's, most of my clients are women, so I know women really well. But I will say that especially for women, it is not okay. And again, our traditional story that we hold about what women should do and how women should be, we're not allowed to be angry, right? If we're angry, we get called the B word. And if we engender anger in others, then oftentimes, because even though manifestors are powerful, they are also very often deeply sensitive. When you're out there and people are impacted by your emotional energy or your power, and you see how it impacts people and they're upset with you, you very quickly key into, okay, that's not an okay way for me to be in the world, so I need to push that down too. And so we get a backlog sometimes of power and anger that honestly I think is kind of the gift of menopause for women, because I think at a certain point around your Chiron return and your 48 to 52 years of age, I do think there's a certain shield that comes off and you get to become much more honest with who you are and how you are in the world. But certainly I would say I've done many, many readings for older manifestor women who are terrified of their emotional energy and terrified of the impact of their emotional energy. So is that anger or the fear of making other people angry keeping you from fulfilling your power? The spiritual job of the pure generator, and by the way, if you're a manifesting generator, you may have related to certain aspects of the manifestor, and I encourage you to explore the questions both of the manifestor as well as of the generator. The spiritual job of the generator is to turn inspiration into form, and I want you to note the difference between the two. The manifestor turns it into action. The generator turns it into form. The role of the generator ultimately is to build. And you build through practice and repetition and practice and repetition, and ultimately the achievement of mastery. That form can be an art form, it can be music, dance, whatever. That form can be whatever mastery of whatever work you end up being called to or you respond to. That you are here to turn inspiration into form, and you don't turn it into form until the form indicates to you through divine timing and through giving you something to respond to that the timing is now indeed right for you to take action, and that action will maybe not necessarily produce results the first time out, that it may be something that you have to do over and over and over again as part of the generator process before you become masterful at it, before you become mature in the formation of the form. And of course, because it involves doing things over and over again to become masterful, and sometimes that means correcting and realigning and correcting and realigning. Sometimes there's frustration in the process. And as I said before, frustration can oftentimes be an indication that you're about to have a breakthrough. It's the symptom of the energy of momentum building. And when you are recognizing that that frustration is part of a potential for breakthrough, and instead of quitting, you wait and you stay put and you see what else happens before you decide what the next step is, then you get to experience the full benefit of your mastery. Gosh, if I could get everybody to get this piece, all my generators to get this piece, it would be so. It's so interesting to me that sometimes people quit in business because they don't stick with it long enough to get the breakthrough, because they get frustrated, because sometimes being in business can be frustrating. And, that frustration piece creates quitters. And oftentimes what happens for the generator is they don't get to experience the full expression of their mastery because they quit too soon. They let the frustration run the show instead of the tenacity and the endurance and the holding on to the vision and the awareness that the frustration is oftentimes the symptom of the next breakthrough. So the manifesting generators and the generators, both, your question here is, am I expressing my mastery or am I settling for less, particularly if it allows you to avoid the frustration? And of course, the question becomes, is frustration keeping me from my masterful destiny? Another way of saying that is, do I quit too soon? Have I quit too soon? Am I quitting? Am I letting frustration run the show? So as I said, this is true both for generators and manifesting generators. And again, my manifesting generators, you can also explore perhaps some of the questions of the manifestors as well. And just to make sure that we're clear, the spiritual job of the manifesting generator is the same as the generator. You're turning inspiration into form. You're just doing it a little bit differently. You're oftentimes responding to more than one thing at a time. You're generally spinning 3 plates at once instead of one. You're having to go back and correct your mistakes more frequently than the generator because you moved too fast. And I'm laughing because right before I clicked onto the show, I can't even tell you what my kitchen looks like because I was moving so fast. I spilled all this stuff on my way to the studio. So I'll have to go back and clean up my mess after the show. And you move faster, you have to fix your mistakes. And sometimes the things you start, because the purpose of the things you start isn't to come to fruition, but you do tend to multitask, mostly because that's the best way to keep your energy occupied so that you're not creating too much chaos. So if you're doing 3 things at once or 10 things at once in your manifesting generator, it's quite possible that only one of those things will come to fruition. And that doesn't mean you failed the other things. It just means that sometimes the purpose of the manifesting generator's multitasking is to keep your energy occupied so that you don't fry your circuits, because it's a lot of energy to hold and it's intense. And if you don't keep it occupied, it creates mischief, particularly when it starts to get frustrated. And again, the questions for the manifesting generator are just the same as for the generator. Am I expressing my mastery or am I settling for less? Is frustration keeping me from my masterful destiny? Our projectors. Projectors have a very unique and incredibly powerful role. And it's my projectors who oftentimes are the ones who are saying, well, about the projector, they're not powerful. And part of the reason why you may not feel powerful is because the world isn't quite ready for you yet. And I want to invite you to really reframe the power of what you're doing. Because the first thing that I find that projectors are doing, maybe not consciously, maybe you're not always aware of this, but because you have an open sacral and you are here to know energy, and you are here to manage it and guide the people who are making forms and taking actions. That the reason why you understand what needs to be done is because you hold within your energy field and in your cells the energetic template of what we're here to create next. So I'm going to try to do a really brand new analogy that may or may not land. So roll with me. If you've ever gone to get acupuncture, you know that your acupuncturist is looking at your energy field, the template of wellness that you carry in your energy field. And they are seeing, like, where is there a block? Where is the chi not flowing? And then they are using the needles, right, to stimulate and reactivate the chi and the flow. When you are a projector, it's like you are that energy template for what's possible for humanity. You hold that within you, and you're like the acupuncturist. You go out into the world and you're like, oh, there's a block here or there's a block there, and we need to go in and fix this block so that the template works better. And of course, you're dealing with a world that is, for the most part, not operating in its full potential yet. And so you look at what's possible, and it's very agonizing to look at, because to you, at least from a theoretical perspective, is very simple. If people just did a couple little tweaks here and there, we'd be living in a much more aligned, much more effective, much more beautiful world. And you get that. You know that. Part of what you're doing, even when you're laying on the couch doing nothing, is your energy body is literally holding this grid or this energy template in place so that we can continue, those of us who have worker energy and creation in action energy, we can keep building this template in the world that's going to match this template that you're holding. To a certain degree, you're not just managing and guiding the generators and the manifesting generators and the manifestors. You're also really kind of white knuckling your way of holding this grid together. And you are clearing on an energetic level. And I think a lot of my projectors really relate to this. Again, even when you're laying on the couch, you're scrubbing the energy of the world, or you're holding it together. And your role here is to ultimately heal the planet and get us ready for the next phase in the evolution of humanity. So when you sit there and you think I'm not powerful, excuse me, none of us would be here probably without you. If the projectors all disappeared off the planet right now, you'd take the darn grid with you. And we would be left with a bunch of crazy people just running around coming up with interesting ideas that would create disaster and chaos. You know this is true. If you're a projector, you look at your family and you look at what your family's doing and what you know they could be doing better. Imagine that on a global level. It's probably, actually, that's what it looks like, right? On a global level. We need you here to manage and guide and direct the rest of us. The challenge is holding not your power. Okay, and that's important. I really want you to get that. It's not your power that you have problems holding. It's the value of who you are and what you do that I find that most projectors really struggle to hold on to, because we so deeply in a materialistic consciousness that we're still emerging from as we move into quantum consciousness, we still so deeply value people by virtue of their material worth and their work, that when we can't see the work that you're doing, we think, or society tends to devalue what you're doing. Well, that's bunk. And that's bad on us, because we can't do what we're doing without you. So the question for the projector that's vital for you tapping into the true nature of your power. And by the way, I'm just going to tell you something. If you have ever seen a projector in their power, and I have met some mighty powerful projectors, and let me just rattle off some famous ones that we know. Bernie Sanders is a projector. Obama is a projector. JFK was a projector. Marilyn Monroe was a projector. Fidel Castro was a projector. I can't remember Karl Marx, if he was a projector or a manifestor, I forgot. I think he was a projector too, though, if I'm not mistaken. There's some very, very powerful people out there fulfilling their role of the projector quite nicely. Thank you very much. And don't tell me that a projector can't be powerful or in a position of power. They belong in positions of power. That's where you're supposed to be. But you can't get there if you devalue yourself. And that means that you really have to kind of go, if you're a projector, la 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 la, and don't listen to what other people's projections of your value are. Because if you're standing in the projection field of somebody else's projection of your value, and it's not matching up what is truly valuable about you, particularly because they don't get it and they're judging you based on generator identities and not projector identities, you're going to be giving away your value, which is the ultimate source of your power. Because when you are a projector and you get your value, you are able to stand in that value and not let yourself be placed in a position in the world that doesn't serve not only your highest good, but the highest good of who you truly are. And when you're living true to that power, when you're living true to that role, you are running the world. So that whole Beyonce song, Who Runs the World? Yes, girls, and also projectors. So we should probably rewrite that. The second question that I invite you to explore, because I will say the most disempowering energy that a projector can hold is bitterness. And that bitterness oftentimes comes from you comparing yourself to generators. So stop that, because you're not a generator, and you should be grateful that you're not, because you're a projector. You know, in the perfect world, in the manifesting, in the generator, in the human design world, that was not meant to be a Freudian slip. I apologize. It is not a manifestor generator world. Okay. It is and will become more and more a projector world. And in the projector world, the projector serves best when we place them on a throne and we say, okay, mighty projector, what should we do? And hopefully we'll continue to move in that direction. Because a projector that's living true to their type and holding their value and serving the people that they're here to serve, and not comparing themselves to the generators around them or the manifesting generators around them, but is instead saying, okay, this is who I am. This is my role. I have a reading assignment for all of my projectors. Write this down. If you don't have a pen, write it down. Go get a pen and write this down. I want you to go get the book Frederick by Leo Leone. It's a children's book. And it is the story of a projector mouse. And I want you to read that book, and I want you to get how powerful that mouse is in that story, because that's you guys. You are the ones who get the mouse family through the winter unscathed because you take care of them, because you get it, and you hold that value, and you don't descend into the generator world. You stand in that value, and you let the bitterness be a signal that you're overdoing it, and that you're too valuable to push too hard. So go back and rest until you regenerate your energy, and then see what shows up. The fastest, projectors often ask me, how do I get an invitation? And I'll tell my projectors, the fastest way you can get an invitation is to stand in your value. Because when you hold your value, then you are much better able to get the invitation, because people get it when you get it. If you can't hold your value, it's hard for people to see your value. So it has to really start from within yourself first. And that means you've got to get, whether you want to call it cocky or conceited or whatever you have to do to amp that value piece up for yourself, but you got to get that value piece for yourself. The last type is the reflector. The spiritual role of the reflector is to serve as a barometer for the evolution of the planet. And again, my reflectors are often talking to me about how powerless they feel. And I will say that in just a minute, I'm going to talk about the power of your aura and the power of openness. And I want you to understand that when you are a reflector and you feel powerless, that means you're in the wrong place. The reflector is designed to feel good. And if you are a reflector and you are not feeling good, then you're not in the right place. You're not serving the correct reflection. And that means you need to obviously do this in the way that's correct for you as a reflector. You've got to take your time, because it takes time when you're a reflector. You're not here to move fast. But you got to take your time and get yourself into your right place. And that may mean you have to experiment and explore for a while and follow the trail and follow what feels right. But you have to put yourself in the right place so that you're serving as the correct barometer. If you don't feel good, you're not in the right place. And if you're disappointed, it means you're not in the right place. You're here to reflect your tribe. You're here to reflect your people. And when you're in the right place, things click a little bit better. The other challenge for the reflector is that because the reflector carries so much openness, it's very easy as a reflector to merge. And because you don't make change quickly, if you've merged your energy into someone else and you have intertwined that energy so completely that it's difficult for you to sense yourself in the midst of somebody else's energy. And this is especially true sometimes for reflectors in relationships. That when you're intertwined with somebody else's energy, you lose connection to what's good and right for you, and you get swept up into somebody else's energy field. And then you're making decisions not in the way that is right for you, and decisions that are not even based on your own energy, but decisions that are based on your experience of other people's energies. And then you're moving yourself further and further away from what's good and right for you. That emotional theme of disappointment comes from not only having inside of yourself, based on the way your energy field operates, the awareness of what's possible for humanity and looking out at humanity and going, what? Are you kidding me? But also from the disappointment that comes from making a series of decisions with people or in the midst of people that take you further away from what's truth for you rather than aligning with your own innate understanding of yourself. And that takes sometimes some difficult decisions. It means it takes yourself having to get yourself into a state of taking your time, which is crucial for the reflector. And we say the reflector needs a 28-day waiting cycle. I will say, in my experience of reflectors, my oldest stepdaughter is a reflector. Sometimes it takes 2, 3, sometimes 4 cycles, lunar cycles, before you get that clarity. And sometimes that clarity doesn't come until you get yourself out of other people's energies for a while. And you may need to go away or take a retreat or even break auric space. And even then, because you absorb energy so beautifully, it can take time away before you can get really clear and locked onto what is the right choice for you. So time is imperative. And sometimes making sure you're clear about whose energy you're holding and making sure that you're not compromising who you are. And it's tricky for the reflector. And the real marker is, do you feel good where you are? And if you're not feeling good, don't make your decisions in that place. Get yourself to a different place to make the bigger decisions for yourself in your life. So the questions for the reflector become, can I be, meaning be who you are? Or am I merged? Are the decisions and the choices and directions you're taking because you've absorbed somebody else's energy field and you've identified with it? And then is the disappointment of what you're experiencing keeping you from being present to where you are, being aware of what's going on, seeing and observing, but not being merged, and from being yourself? You may not have definition in your centers, but you still have definition in your chart. And those gates that you hold, I encourage all my reflectors, get a reading where somebody can go really into the depth of your gates and the themes of your gates, because that is who you are. That is the strength of your consistency. And understanding that gives you a deeper awareness of who you are in the context of the flux of energy that you're constantly experiencing. Let's talk now, as we come through our reflector conversation, a little bit about the power of openness. When we look at your chart, you'll see you have things colored in and things that are white. The colored we sometimes call defined. The white we sometimes call open. Anything that's defined is energy that you have consistent access to, and it's fixed, meaning it operates in a consistent way. Thematically. Let me make sure you understand that that's thematic, because that doesn't mean you can't grow and change over the course of your life in your defined centers. You can. It's just you're going to tend to grow in a specific theme. You're going to experience that energy along a specific theme track. That defined energy is what you radiate out into the world. You all get that. The piece that I really want to explore a little bit more deeply is openness. Anything that's white in the chart is what we call open or undefined. That's true for centers, and that's true for gates and channels. So everybody has white openness on their chart. Now, I want to go back and review something that we talk about a lot in the beginning of human design, but sometimes we forget, and that's this. Where you have openness, you are taking in energy and information, and you're amplifying it. You're not just going, hey, I'm feeling this. You're experiencing it in an amplified way. So you're taking it in, and you're literally blowing it up inside of you. And you're not just blowing it up. To a certain degree, because you're living in that expanded energy, you're amplifying it and you're holding it in an expanded way. So when people tell me a lot, oh, well, I don't have this or I don't have that in my chart. So you have the whole dang chart. Okay. We all have all of the chart. I've said this a million times, and I keep saying this until we get it. Everything that's colored in is consistent. Everything that's open has variability, but it's still there. It's not like you don't have it. It's just variable. Not only is there variability there, you take energy in and you amplify it there. And because ultimately, when you know about this about yourself over time, you begin to understand these energies work for you in a variety of different ways. You can consciously call on these energies in the short run, not sustainably. This is the thing that's really important to understand about openness. You can use the energy in your open centers. You can't sustain that energy, can't hold it forever, but you can use it temporarily. So when you start to understand, oh, hey, this is how the gate 51 works. This is the gate of shock. And I'm personally not always shocking, but because I understand the 51, I can use this energy when I need to initiate people into an idea, a thought, a perspective, a different way of seeing things. You can consciously draw on your wisdom of that energy and use it. And you don't just use it in this expanded, amplified way. So wherever you have openness, that's not weakness. I think we think wherever we have openness, we have weakness. It's not. It's power. It's wisdom and power. It's amplified energy. And I'll tell you what, if you've ever had, and I know a lot of you think you don't know reflectors, but you hang out with a reflector who has 9 open centers. And I promise you, you will feel the reflector coming up the street way before they even arrive at their house. Because a reflector, because they have all that openness, they're not a ghost. They're not this invisible wallflower that you never see. There may be other elements in their chart that create that. But the reflector is powerful. When a reflector walks into a party, they're reflecting all 9 energy centers in an amplified state. That's why you see a lot of reflectors in positions like on stage, acting, and engaging in the expression of the human journey, because they get it so deeply and they can hold it so profoundly and in such a powerful way. Your openness, the openness of the reflector, or any openness that you have in your chart, is not weakness, it's power. It just takes time, though, once you meet your human design and you study human design and you learn your human design and you start to really shift your awareness about how your energy works. We don't naturally go to the power of the openness until we've experienced our type a little bit more intimately over a couple of years. If you're new to human design, or even if you've been in human design for a while, I want you to understand that you're going to get eventually to that point where you go, oh, I am so intimately aware of my open centers and the energies that I carry in this variable way, in this way that teaches me about the power of humanity. And I can consciously draw on that because I understand this so deeply. And when I draw on it, I'm not just drawing on it, I'm amplifying it. Then you will really get how powerful you are. Even if you have a lot of openness, you're powerful. That's more power, not less. All right, we have to talk about one other thing, and then I'm going to quickly shoot through some. I'm sorry, I have my clock over here, so I keep looking over there. I want to shoot through some super quick thoughts. Just going to read these for you quickly. I know you know this stuff. If you've been watching my show for a while, you know this stuff, but I'm just going to read them really quickly. I want to talk just a minute about true leadership and where it lives in the chart. This is called the channel of the alpha. This is where democracy lives in the human design chart. This is where power lives in the chart. This is leadership in the chart. There's 2 kinds of leadership in the chart. The first kind of leadership comes out of the ego, and that's the energy of the king or the queen. I am the ruler. The 731, the leadership energy in the channel of the alpha, in this channel is not about the I leading. It's about leading from the heart. And this is the most powerful way that we as a collective group organize ourselves. King leadership is ego and it's tribal. It's not collective. And to a certain degree, it has personal gain potentially associated with it. The channel of the alpha has no personal gain associated with it. It's leadership energy that is recognized and called out. And it's called out by the group, by the collective that we live in. And it's through the collective that we support the energy and the possibility of leadership. So when we think about democracy, we are all designed to be committed to democracy as the source of our desire to follow and support the leader. That means that sometimes in a democracy, we don't like what's going on. That means we change what happens in a democratic way. There is no dictatorship in the high expression of the human design chart. There's no individual person taking control as the highest form of leadership in the chart. Leadership comes from people organizing themselves and choosing someone to represent the group. And we support the representative of that group as the power of our collective leadership. This is not a political conversation I'm having right now. I am talking about the archetype of leadership in the chart. I threw this out here not so much because I want to talk about democracy, but because I want you to understand that this is a non-motorized element of the chart, meaning this is an aspect of the chart that doesn't work unless it's recognized and invited. It's projected. And when my projectors start to tell me I'm not powerful as a projector, I want to tell you that the most powerful channel in the chart is a projected channel. And it comes from people recognizing that you have the keys necessary to lead. And so my projectors, especially, I leave you with this thought that as we organize ourselves together as groups in a way that supports the evolution of humanity and the fulfillment of heart in the world, that energy is projector energy. And that you carry that energy in the heart of who you are. And we all are designed by virtue of who we are to support the nature of high, good, quality, heart-based leadership that is for the greater good of the whole out into the world. And if you feel like we're not there yet, it's okay. We're going to get there eventually. So the last little bits of thoughts that I want to leave you with is your aura does the talking. Leadership is not about seizing it. As I said, there's no dictatorship in the chart. You don't seize your power. You let your aura reflect the power, hold the power, and then let the power be recognized. It's projected. What you carry in your energy field determines how people sense and feel your leadership energy and your power. So I'm just going to review these quickly, and I want you just to go back and think about these yourselves. If you don't perceive yourself as lovable, it will be in your aura, and people will not call you out into leadership if you are not open to giving and receiving love, because leadership comes from the heart. If you are not activating the nature of your true power, meaning if you're not being who you are and living true to who you are, people will get that, and they won't call you out into roles of empowerment. If you are afraid and you're letting that fear hijack your momentum, people are going to get that and they won't call you out into leadership. If you don't know how to choose what's right for you because you don't understand your type or you don't trust yourself, it's going to be hard for people to call you out into a position of leadership. If you don't know how to use your emotional energy as the most intentional creative tool you have in your toolbox, and you are not emotionally wise and you are reactive instead of deliberate, people will not call you out into leadership. If you don't trust yourself, people are going to get that about you, and they're not going to trust you either. So it's going to be hard for them to call you out into leadership. If you are burned out and you don't have the energy to fulfill your role as a leader or your power because you're not taking care of yourself, you're not valuing yourself enough to nurture yourself, people are going to know that about you, and they're not going to call you out into leadership. If you are not fully expressing the truth of who you are, your authentic self, people are going to get that about you, and they're going to feel like, what's up with this person? There's something off here. They're going to feel that, and they're not going to call you out into leadership. And if you are not standing in your value, and people don't get your value because you don't get your value, you won't be able to call on your full power, and people will not call you out into leadership. I just want you to remember you are innately powerful. There is nothing stopping you from your power, by design anyway. And this is a little bit of a different take on types. So please take those questions home and really explore them. And please, 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 I don't ever want anybody to ever say to me again, well, I'm a projector, I'm not powerful. You're flipping powerful. You're all powerful, and we need you. All right. Hey, bye, guys. Have a good weekend.